Tom Hiddleston, Owen Wilson, Huy Kwan, a trio made in heaven. But can they overcome a very esoteric and complicated script? And is Loki actually going into the realm of chasing female Loki and yet again sending us a new hero who will be better than our originals? Bait and switch alert! Not yet, but in the first episode, we've got some stuff to talk about right now. We struggled through Ahsoka, now it's time for Loki. They don't even give us hardly any time to breathe before we go from one imbecilic Thrawn to one very convoluted plan and one very challenging plot, let's say, when it comes to the TVA and Loki. It was a return for Tom Hiddleston, for all the other actors, and it's time to get into this with Culture Casino. Culture, welcome back to the channel.
Well, thanks for having me, Pro, and great day to you. I hope everything's better than this episode of Loki.
Well, absolutely. And folks, as we get into it, I do want to say that while there may be some criticisms of the episode for Loki and its big return, by the way, Loki was, I believe, at the time that it released, the biggest show that Disney Plus had ever had. Now, Mandalorian Season 2 would beat that later on. But as we get into this, I do want to say, and Culture, you could disagree with me if you like, this is miles better than Ahsoka. This is tremendously better than Ahsoka. So keep that in your frame of reference, unless Culture disagrees. But
I agree with you.
Yeah, qualitatively, well, let's lay it on the table this way. All of our actors here are doing light years better with what they're given. I mean, this feels theatrical, even if we have our qualms about it. This is a total change in terms of, hey, this last thing was made incompetently. Whoever's behind the helm here at least knows how to make it look like it's a serious project. Culture, you had some thoughts on the first episode. Give us your review first, and then I'll hop in with mine.
I think you already kind of foreshadowed what I was going to say. There's a lot of convoluted plot here. And there's first of all, you can't really have a quality continuity if you're constantly playing with time travel, but it's frustrating because I felt like they weren't living within their own lore for the entire episode. And this is just an overview. But I struggled with following some of the things here that should have been fairly straightforward. And I felt like it was disjointed, and I think that's probably my broad assessment. It's just, it felt.
I think it's esoteric. I think it is dealing with ideas and concepts that are so ungrounded from the reality in which we live that it is hard to follow and care about the TVA, right? And so when they talk about, they have this impassioned speech about how they've been pruning and therefore committing atrocities against these, many, many timelines and all the people who died. And that should hit harder if there are atrocities being committed and you're fighting against the people who committed atrocities. That should hit pretty hard. It doesn't, because there's so many timelines and so many people, and you've reached that scale now where the audience is like, I don't care. There's like 1 million Iron Man men out there. There's like 1 million Captain Americas. There's 1 million different Earths and non-Earths, and like, I can't care any longer.
Yeah, and I think the problem is now that you're violating the sacred timeline, like constantly, consistently, throughout the episode. And I felt that going back in time to a past and then having somebody remember it and talking about people getting their memory wiped all the time, how are we getting around the idea that people are getting their memories wiped?
Yes, well, totally agree, and maybe there'll be some answers, but this is already so complicated that it's hard to keep track of, for example, when you have Owen Wilson out there with his character in the giant spacesuit, which is very, what would you say? It's very, what was the video game where you went under the water and you did the fighting down there? What was the name of that one?
BioShock.
Yeah, it's very BioShock-esque. Yeah. Very, it's got a distinct look to it. It's still so weird. It's still, when he's out there it's still so strange that you really can't identify with whatever is happening. But I do want to call out, as I said before, Tom Hiddleston, Owen Wilson, and Huy Kwan. They are so good that it is like taking a shower after Ahsoka, where you feel fresh and clean again, and you're like, okay, this is what competent actors. This is what they're like. Like they know what they're doing. The script's not great, and yet they're able to carry this. Tom Hiddleston especially, but also Huy Kwan. They're able to carry what is really strange material, but they deliver it with the gravitas that makes you go, all right, I'm in this world. I don't understand any of it. I'm not sure I agree with the writers, but these guys are good. And we never had that outside of Balin in the Ahsoka series. So just a total change there.
I think it was really nice, to see the three actors together as much as they were in the episode. It's one of those times when you wish that they would do that more frequently. I think they bounce really well off of each other, and they're all fine actors. Unlike, we know, there are a few people that were in the Ahsoka show that can act. I'm 100% with you there. You actually saw quality acting, and it made how frustrating the episode was to watch it. And I've now watched it more than once. It made it feel like it was tolerable, but it was a very confusing shower pro. So
Culture, for the folks out there who are confused by it, walk us through what happens in the episode as best you can. And I think that will then explain to the audience why we're saying this is extremely esoteric and convoluted.
Well, okay, so Loki falls, obviously, it picks up where it left off. Loki falls through, or is pushed through the door, the vortex, whatever you're going to call it, but, kick through at the time.
That's where we are, folks. When you get to a point where even starting off, you say, he's pushed into the whatever you call it. It's a weird one.
Anyway, he's pushed through it, and into the I guess
into the unknown. Oh, sorry.
But he shows up in the TVA, and he's bouncing between timelines where he's recognized and people know him, or where he's not recognized, where the he that remains is present in a big factor, or is non-existent, and it's in the timeline that he's from, the sacred timeline. All of these things happen within this episode within a matter of moments, adding to the confusion. And it ultimately find out through the course of the episode that it's called time slipping, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, you got it.
And so, it's remarkably like hyperspace skipping. So I'm thinking, quality writing. But he ends up being able to go back and forth in time. They make a big joke out of his, popping in and out, like, because it looks pretty awful, rather than.
I thought whoever did the VFX on it, they needed to make it look worse to match what Owen Wilson was, saying.
It did. It looked pretty rough, but I understand. To be fair, I wouldn't want to be, torn apart and reassembled like that.
It looks awful.
Well, Owen Wilson's great, but it's one of the, and they all kept their voices like this. It felt like it was like ASMR.
It did, yes. They're all on NPR.
Yeah, I was, what's going on? But anyway. So we get to a certain point, then they get called into the court, for lack of a better way of.
God, the court scene's bad, though. I will say the court scene's really bad.
Well, and I have never seen a show try so hard to make all of the characters, for the most part, unlikable. Yeah, I feel like you can't like anybody in that room outside of Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston, and they go through that scene, and they come to the realization that they're the bad guys now, and so they have to eliminate. Ultimately, towards the end of the show, they have to eliminate or locate, or I guess kill off Sylvie, but that's entirely another thing.
Right, totally different thing.
So we find ourselves in a need for Loki to stop the time slipping, so he stops falling in and out of time. So they end up in the basement. I mean, it's off the beaten path, right?
You do have to give them credit for one thing here. They have taken an idea, and they have this idea of how the TVA settings will look. That's a very interesting way of being able to go into physical sets in the real world with like mail rooms and the bottom floors of very old buildings, and then they CGI some extra pieces in there, and they do some stuff. But what an interesting thing to take very old government buildings or whatnot and use that as your backdrop for a TVA.
I see. I think that's actually a wonderful observation, because I think the sets and the aesthetic in particular, and how it's shot and everything, I think that adds to people's experience of the show. It's one of the few things that I appreciate, is that it doesn't feel flat. We've been presented with so much flat, superficial, two-dimensional things from Disney shows.
Well, that's because the Star Wars, the new filming technique where they wrap the CGI around them.
Yeah. So. You have the in motion sets because of the volume spaces, but it's regardless, it's aesthetically pleasing, and it works with what they're trying to do. So back to it, they need to separate Loki from this experience of time slipping. So they make their way to the basement, and that's where we meet OB, or Boris, and I love that character. I love the conversation.
Oh, me too.
And it works out really well. We start to see that the memory wiping has had its effect on Mobius. I always do that. At the R. And he's he's not remembering that he's already engaged in conversation and met with OB. So OB they break it down. It becomes a joke. It was a lot of needless exposition that didn't need to be there. We didn't need to have that. It was quaint to have it because of the interaction of the three characters. Like I said, that was one of the good things about the episode. Anyway, they meet down there, and then eventually they get around to the fact that they need to stop the time slipping, and of course they play out the joke where it's impossible to do that in the TVA, which keeps happening in front of them all. And they
also they pull off one joke that actually, this was one of the few times when I said, okay, that was really, really smart. And the joke was that they could do this, it might kill Loki.
Yes.
And Mobius, his skin can be peeled off, right?
Peeled off.
And I kept wondering, why do they keep making this joke about the skin? But they kept going on and on about the joke about the skin, and so it was kind of getting annoying. And so there's Mobius, writing down the word "skin" in the dust on a console, and with a question mark. And when he does that, I'm like, it's kind of funny, but this is obsessive about this one joke. Let it go. And then when Loki time slips into the future, he sees that the word is still written into the dust, and therefore he knows that he's in the future, not in the past. Right. When that happened, I will have to give the writers credit here. When that happened, that was very, very smart writing, and I enjoyed that very much, that they took a joke and turned it into a plot mechanism. So well played on that one.
Indeed. And again, it adds to that continuity of a show that's impossible to maintain continuity in. So it was very strange. But regardless, they need to separate him. So they talk about this. He invents a tool in the past to pull Loki into the timeline that they're in, but they have to go into the temporal loom, which is where, your skin can be pulled off and you can be shredded into spaghetti or whatnot if it's not successful. Very interesting concepts. But regardless, and despite all the convoluted stuff going on there, you do feel like things moved forward, which I never felt happened often enough in Ahsoka. So again, we're talking apples and oranges in these two shows.
Oh yeah, I mean this is Ahsoka isn't on this level in any way.
No.
This was like going back to something. It's not as good as the first two episodes of the first season of Loki.
Right.
Those were masterpieces, and I think that's what made me so sour on the series originally, was that the drop off in quality was so stark in the first season that it angered me that it could possibly be that good in the setup and that poor in the delivery later on. But this was still, this was much better than Ahsoka.
Well, but that speaks to something even larger, I think, Pro, and that's the fact that all of the Disney shows have had that same cliff that they all fall off of about the second or third episode, and then they don't pick up until the last one or two episodes that remain in the season.
They make a movie, they split the movie into parts, and then they add a ton of superfluous filler in the middle that you could totally skip. And the solution to that in Ahsoka was to throw Anakin in the middle for a fever dream that makes no sense, and there's nothing is gained by it. But that was the solution there. Throw a hook in. So we'll see if that's the new Disney model, is throw in some sort of crazy member-berry hook into the middle of their shows, into the nonsense episodes, to make people have to watch them to see what happens. Oh my gosh. So we'll see how that goes. But one of my takes on this culture is that I think it's complicated, it's convoluted. I think this is, it feels a bit like a show trying to take on themes and ideas that are too big for it to take on. But I would enjoy greatly watching a Tom Hiddleston, Owen Wilson, and Huy Kwan, those three characters, send them into the world and let just their personalities carry this thing. I'll watch that. I don't care about going to find female Loki. I didn't care about her in the last season. I don't care about seeing her in 80s McDonald's today, which, excellent set design there. I don't know how they made it look so much like 80s McDonald's, but they did. Maybe chasing Stranger Things a bit here, but I don't care about the police officer at the TVA. I really don't care about the TVA. I love the setting, although I would tell them to tone down the Browns. But I have loved the setting of the TVA in terms of the ambiance. But I don't care about the TVA itself. And I certainly don't care about Kang. And I don't know what they're going to do with Jonathan Majors playing that role if things don't go the way that they hope that it goes with his legal woes. But I would definitely watch the big three. I think these are definitely the big three rising up in the show. Yeah, I would watch those three guys doing anything. And I would recommend even Marvel. I've only seen one episode, so maybe Huy Kwan, maybe he's not as good in the other things. But if he's this good in a Marvel setting, put him elsewhere. Get him out of the TVA and throw him into some other storylines. He was excellent. I enjoyed it thoroughly. And we haven't had that character type yet. He's playing sort of who is it that Rick Moranis plays in Ghostbusters?
Well, isn't he a CPA?
Yeah. But I can't remember his name. It's escaping me.
Yeah, me too. I
can hear Sigourney Weaver saying his name, but then it disappears in my mind. Anyway, folks in the comments, you'll tell me who he's playing, and then I'll say, yes, I know. I'm firing the neurons, which wouldn't fire in my brain for that one.
I haven't had enough coffee for that, but yeah.
That's right. But anyway, he's playing that sort of a character, right? He's this naive, diminutive intellect who's kind of ignored and sitting at the bottom, but he has huge potential if he's just unlocked. And I love those characters. I love those characters. And so take him on the adventure, please. I beg of you, because he'll be a fish out of water, and that might keep this show going. But I'm with you, Culture. If this turns into a chase for Loki version 2.0, female Loki, and if she's the greatest and the bestest and all of that, then this thing's doomed. But if we can just get these three heavy hitters going, I'm on board with it. You can throw in female actors with this, but these three guys have some kind of magic. Let them do it. Don't hold them back and constrain them, as we've seen so many times.
Yeah, and you pointed out brilliantly that Huy Kwan has always been an underutilized actor in Hollywood. He was basically just he didn't seem to be anywhere. What a brilliant maintenance worker they created. He's constantly filling service orders. Again, it's lovely. You have somebody who has all the answers to the problems and thinks deeply about them.
A normal actor culture would have made that character very annoying.
Oh yeah,
just think about it. But what he does with that character is he is completely and innocently earnest, and by playing it that way, you actually really like this little character who's sitting all by himself in the basement, who's a team player, right? He doesn't come across as a prick. He doesn't come across as someone who's a know-it-all, even though he is. And that comes down to the way that this character is played. It takes a very good actor to look at the others and to be in the presence of a camera and to come across that good and wholesome in order to make you like this very strange idea.
Yeah, I that's 100% right. I think I would describe it as a very he's able to deliver, a whole performance, but it's very understated. I think is
Yes.
how I describe it. So, but I mean, this we haven't seen this kind of a character, right? This ombudsman kind of a character in any of these shows. And again, it's
Lewis culture. It popped in my head. It's Lewis. That's who's
right.
from.
Good job.
Maybe Huy Kwan will have that moment where he becomes the fifth Ghostbuster. Not the fifth Ghostbuster, but the Avenger.
I would love for him. I would love for the three of these guys to have an adventure together. But
Yes.
but we all know Sylvia is the key to everything.
Oh my gosh, that's what I know is coming. It's already. That's why when she shows up at the end in the McDonald's, you're like, I don't care. Please don't do this. Like, and it doesn't have to do with her being female and the others being male. It has to do with the fact that her character isn't interesting.
Yeah,
and it's not delivered in an interesting way.
Well, anytime you create a character like that, that's just good for the best from the very beginning, you've killed all interest for the audience, because there's no room to develop the character. There's no room to explain why they are all good all the time. You introduce somebody like that with zero backstory, nothing to back it up. It's hard to get into the character. If you go back and explain it after the fact, that also doesn't help, because you've already disregarded that character because it's built on a trope. It's built on something that's a lie. So it's always been a problem. This as the story progressed forward, I really identified something that I feel like should be stated, and that's the fact that everything in the show, in order to create some sense of kinetics, some sense of energy, some sense of motion, they do everything incredibly fast. There's no break between anything.
Yep.
Trying to give you an idea that there's a lot of action here, and that's why they do the walking and talking in hallways, which is fine. I mean, it gives you a chance to appreciate the aesthetics we were talking about. But I mean, go back and recount what actually happens in the episode. There's not a lot there.
It's like a 1950s sort of heavy talking drama, but they've masked it. You're exactly right, by never being stationary and clipping hard into the next scene. There's a lot of hard stops.
And I think a lot of that is exacerbated by the fact that the time slipping effect, while an interesting concept, I think was overutilized, and it also gave you addition to that breakneck pace is probably the best way to describe it.
So, Culture, give us a numerical rating, and as we give this for the first episode, folks, here's what I will say in terms of the financial side of this. Big time investment yet again in this. One of Disney Plus's biggest shows in the past. We will be watching the Nielsen ratings even more, especially because this really will give us a signal where the audiences have gone. But I would say on this one, it needs to get out of the sophistry that it has entered into. It needs to get into, and for those of you who say, come on, Pro, seriously, don't drop that kind of a word. I'll pause and say that is the base word to sophistication. But it needs to get out of that realm and bring it down to something Earth-like and grounded. And please bring the three characters there. But it needs to get to something people can relate to pretty quickly, or else it's going to lose quite a bit of the audience who are going to turn in and say, I don't know what this is. I can't, I'm out. But Culture, numerical rating, where would you put this?
Ooh, give me the scale and I'll tell you.
1 to 10 or 0 to 10, I suppose. I could imagine a 0. It's not this for sure.
For as harsh as I speak about this, and as much as I don't appreciate what they're doing with the show from the very first season. Again, I had the same experience you did after the second episode of the first season, but my thoughts are this. This is about a 5.5 to 6. If you pinned me on a whole number, I would have to say this edges itself up to a 6. And the only reason is because of the acting performance and the aesthetics that we were talking about. Everything else about this, and again, I like to think I'm a somewhat intelligent guy. Everything else about this is going to lose me very quickly, because it's not something that's digestible. And remember how they're always trying to create things that are relatable. I can't relate to anything that's being done in the show. And mostly, it's right now. It's just it's convoluted for for just the confusion, maybe the thing that they're trying to hook the audience with. I don't know, but I think it's
well, it could be another mystery box idea. I think they're trying to aim for. I think they're trying to aim for these very dreamlike series where you're constantly trying to figure out what is the entity that's behind all of it, and what does this mean? What does that mean? And it just feels like they're trying to bite off more than they can chew here. I'm right with you. I'd have given this a 6 out of 10. Yeah. Exactly what I was thinking for reference. Yeah. I only gave one episode of Ahsoka a 6, and that was the best it ever did. It was down in the 3s and the 2s. It was terrible. Yeah. I mean, really bad. But also in reference, I gave Loki season 1, the first 2 episodes, 10s. And I said that they were some of the best television I had ever seen, period. Yeah. Which really then, when they turned that into propagandist episodes later on, and then came out and proclaimed it as if it was a good thing, that it really made me irritated that they would do that. So we'll see what happens with this season. But right now, 6 out of 10. And I'm hoping that they get out of the TVA and this becomes better. I think this could become better if they do the right things. And I don't want to come back and do another review, next week and the week after and say, well, never mind. It's the Loki girl show now. Here we go. Loki and her pet Loki crocodile running around the different fast food restaurants.
I think we should wager a pizza on this, and I'll say you're going to get the key to everything. You are. Sorry.
I bet so. I will wager you. Okay, only because it's no fun if there's no wager. If we both agree, I will wager you a 1982 Pizza Hut pizza, personal pan. Ooh. If it goes my way, I get the pizza. If it goes your way, you get the pizza. I'm hoping for the 3 guys to get down there. They'll never do this. I'm hoping for the 3 guys to get down there onto 1980s Earth and have a good romp with it, and let's go.
And I wager that the 3 guys might be together, but they're going to need to be drug around by their noses by a girl. So enjoy.
Yes, well, darn it, culture. I can't disagree with you, but I will still hold the wager so that somebody here gets to eat pizza. Okay. All right, folks, if you like content like this, and if you like pizzas, click the like button. That makes it easy to click it, doesn't it? Yeah. Share, subscribe, and when you click it, you do indeed stick it to the algorithms. It's the notification bell. And who knows, maybe if you click one of those notification bells, a pizza will fall down from heaven for you just because you're a good person. Drop a comment down below and let us know, do you agree or disagree with our assessment? Despite the fact that we've been critical of the esoteric nature of the episode, it sounds like we are still giving it an overall positive score. 6 is better than 5. And 5 is right in the middle. So we're giving it a 6 out of 10. Folks, that means that yet again, we defy the boo birds who say we're just negative about Disney. And we are open to this series being good. We just fear for its future because of the past. And that, I think, is a meta recognition of what Loki is attempting to do as well. We also live in the past and the future, in that we have seen what Disney has done and we know where they'll go. All right, folks, that is a wrap for today. We hope you enjoyed it. Remember, the pro show from Thursday, October 5th, will be live through the weekend, and then it goes into the archives. You can check it out, though, still afterwards if you're a member of the channel. And wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, stop time slipping, and keep having fun.
Listen up, my brothers and sisters. You've been listening to Phils and Zoes with an agenda to destroy your brain cells for far too long. It's time to change your way of doing things. Hold up. TPP is the place to be. Covering the news so honestly. It's a team that's cool and tried and true. Ahead of the culture curve, they're trying to keep you. Jonas and Pro, they run the show, and they dragged in the bearded culture casino. You got Valiant and Lord and Fourth of Line. Wonderful people, yeah, they're alright. They got weird bringing in people like Floral, but made no mistake with Lorena Creole. Amelia and John, stuttering guitarist. Martin and Tawny, and someone called CMS. Fat Steven makes a bunch of other graphics. Did I mention a partnership with Bending in the comics? Fat Sky is a guy, and Doc Matt does the web stuff. There's probably some people I missed. I hope they're not telling you the news that should be fun. With accurate info that's not been spun, you can figure it out as you will see.